All right, I think this is probably the most interesting one, and we kind of got into it earlier. MVP,
Hmm.
most valuable player. So, what are your thoughts, feelings, definitions surrounding the most valuable of players?
I think the most valuable player is the player who does the most for their team. That is the most valuable player, as I see it. The person who does the most for their team. And that's why we've always considered LeBron. Uh, people generally say LeBron really supposed to have like 10 MVPs. People say the same thing about Mike. People say Kobe's supposed to have more MVPs because we all feel like they were doing the most for their team at the time. Like LeBron with the points, rebounds, assists. He give you almost a triple double every night. Guard, in his prime, he could guard any position. Uh, Mike, scoring titles on scoring titles, but he also guard, not afraid to guard the best defender. I mean, the best player. All that good stuff. That's doing the most for your team. Same thing for Kobe, scoring, but also taking on the best scoring guard, the other team's best scorer. Like that is doing the most for your team. And that, I feel like that's value. And I feel like a lot of times when we talking about value, and this is I'm pretty sure most anybody would agree with this. Scoring, scoring the basketball, the ability to score the basketball is the most valued commodity in basketball. Like that's the most important facet of the game, the ability to score. You're not going nowhere without scoring the ball. And that's why all good teams have at least one guy who can just get a bucket whenever. Like you get to him, get him and get a bucket. Because that's the most important facet of the game. So we often think the person scoring the most is the most valuable player or the best player. Well, that's not necessarily true. The most valuable player is doing more than one thing, and that. I feel like that maybe just my thinking, but like case in point, we feel like James Harden. A lot of people feel like James Harden should have got an MVP over Russell Westbrook one particular year when he averaged a triple double, and James was averaging like 36 points a game. But the thing about it was Russ's team was like he was the only star there, and he was the only one. He was the only like big name there, and his team probably wasn't good enough to make the playoffs without him. Most likely was not. And he's averaging a triple double, almost like he's doing everything for them. Willing his team, got them to the playoffs, give him MVP. A lot of people feel like, man, James Harden's supposed to have MVP. He averaging 36 a game, but it's like, and I understood that sentiment, but at the same time, it's like James Harden is only scoring. Like, and we had the stigma like James Harden don't play no defense. James Harden is an ISO player. He can pass, but he's an ISO guy. You give him space and let him go to work, dribble, 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 as Charles Barkley would say, and let him get a bucket. So that's kind of how we looked at James Harden at the time. So they gave MVP to Russ. Next year, James did end up getting the MVP. And then, James Harden, not trying to rag on James Harden too much, but then when Giannis won MVP, he was kind of getting on my boy Case, throwing shade. Like, man, I wish I could just run and dunk. I actually have to have skill. But the thing about it is, Giannis is doing more than scoring. He's still averaging 26, 28 points a game, but he's rebounding, he's defending. He's probably the best hillside defender in the game besides Rudy Gobert. And like he has impact on the game outside of scoring. It's one of them things like it's one of them things like if I take this away from your game, what are you doing? And like if it's for James Harden, if I like we all seen James Harden have nights where he just don't make no shots. Or he might come out the game with like 11. We all seen them games out of James. What else did he do in the game? We don't know. But if Giannis come out of a game, ain't scored a whole lot of points, got 12, maybe 10 points, he gonna have still 15 rebounds. He's still gonna have you 2 blocks and a steal. He's still the impact of the game in other ways. So that's value, and that's where my definition comes from. Who is doing the most for their team night in and night out. So that's where I would go with my definition of most valuable. So where would you go? What would you consider the definition of most valuable?
Uh, this is the toughest one, just because it's so much that goes into value. And I think we've
Mm-hmm.
talked about it on the podcast. I know I made a post about it one day, but I don't know if we talked. I know I talked to you about it, but I don't know if it was on the podcast or not. But this is the toughest one for me personally to define and talk about because, like I was saying earlier, you know, the best player doesn't. Well, we said earlier, the best player doesn't always win MVP every year, or the best player that year doesn't win MVP that year either. So,
Mm.
by the NBA's definition of what the MVP is, it is a mixture of what player had the best season slash who has the best storyline. So it's
Oh
like
yeah.
storyline plays a huge role into it, whether they want to admit it or not. Because if you really want to go, like you said, if you want to do that, Jordan should have way more MVPs. LeBron should have more MVPs. Steph and Katie. It should really be a balance between. Should have been a balance between Steph Curry, LeBron, and Katie for like who's winning MVP every year. Like, no offense to Westbrook, but he shouldn't have one. That's the case because he was never the best player any of these years. So it's like,
Mm.
and I love Westbrook. That's my dude. I think he had the best year that year. He averaged triple double, yes, but that's kind of weird because storyline wise, you already did that, bro. That's old news. He did that like the next 2 years too. So I think 3 or 4 years he averaged a triple double, and that's just
Mm.
mind blowing alone, bro. But he didn't. He only won MVP once. That was the storyline for that year. After that, it's like, just old news. What's the next storyline? So, and it's just a weird thing because, if we go by what the NBA says, then that's what the definition should be. Who has the best year, who's having that best season, and who has the best storyline. So both of those put together is what makes the NBA's most valuable player. But I think overall in totality, I think, of course, impact. Like, impact is just I think that's one of our. If you had a B-Ball Jones dictionary of like go-to words, impact is one of those ones that you have to throw in there because we talk about it so often. So impact is definitely a part of the equation, the formula of the most valuable. So I'm trying to find the right words to mix together because it's nothing that's for me personally. Here's how I view most valuable. Right, if I took this player and removed them from this team, just as they
Mm.
are, what team falls the hardest? So if every year we're talking about MVP, Joker versus Embiid, who does the most with the least? That's part of what it is. That's part of what, for me personally, what the MVP. That's a piece, and not the whole thing, but that's a piece of it, because that's not completely fair to GMs and all that other stuff. You can't discredit me, the player, for having a great GM to like support me. You know what I mean? So that's
Mm-hmm.
touchy. So that's a piece of it though. So if for me personally, Draymond is the most valuable player for the Warriors. He's obviously not the
Mm-hmm.
best player. Steph Curry is the best player. But if you took Draymond out of the Warriors, nobody's replacing everything that Draymond brings to that team. Steph Curry, you take him out of that team, they'll survive for 2 seconds, but they're gonna drown real quickly because Steph Curry, his value to that team is so high and it's so different. You can't really do that. But Draymond, for me personally, his value is a little bit higher. So his impact as far as what he does and brings is just because that's what makes the Warriors more than anything else. So Draymond's obviously not the best player, but he's still the most valuable for me. Now here's where I've had this debate with myself back and forth. I think LeBron and Jordan are the two only players who have been the best and the most valuable on almost every team they've had. Because most other teams, yeah, you're the best player, but you can argue that Pippen was the most valuable. You can argue that. I think that's a fair
Mm.
debate to have. Um, the Heat years, you could argue that Dwayne Wade is a little more valuable because he closed the game. Maybe Chris Bosh is more valuable. That's a debate that you could really have. I won't be mad about that. But to define most valuable is so tough, man. So I think impact is for sure on there. And I was looking at different words. So like to actually define what value is, let me go back. So valuable. A thing that is of great worth, especially a small item of personal property. I shouldn't have read that last part because nothing to do with it. But something that is of great worth, right?
Mm,
So,
mm,
like I said before, if you remove this thing or this player from the team, they're automatically dropping. We've seen LeBron's value and worth. 1 year in Cleveland, championship, or at least to the finals. Next year, first overall pick. There's no ifs, ands, or buts around that man's value. That's easily what that was. You could debate this with Jordan. 1 year he's playing, retires. Next year they're still in the playoffs. Still talking about being the best teams in the league. So who's more valuable to who? That in that case that boost up LeBron. So it's like little stuff like that I can see as being valuable, man. But I think words we have to look at when we're considering the most valuable is, of course, impact. Um, I think influence is where we have to look at too. Who influences the team the most? Not necessarily the league and all the bigger picture like we talked about before, but who influences the team? And then last is like priceless. I can't think of a better word, but like they're priceless to this team. Like, man, if you took this player off the team, they're not the same anymore. They're too priceless for this team. You can't put a dollar amount to what they bring and what they add. So
mm.
I can't really come up with a definition. Be real with you, man. Um, like I said, this is the toughest one for me, but I think the most valuable player comes down to their impact, their influence to the team, and like them being priceless to what they offer. So I think that's the best I got for right now, man. Hopefully, about before we end this episode, I can come up with a better, more thought out thing. But that's the best I got for right now.
Man, it don't sound bad to me. So I try to put our definitions together. So
Mm.
I think what we are both saying is the most valuable player is the player. Like, and it's crazy. I don't want to say the word impact for all three of them. I feel like we just said impact for all three words, but they mean something different in all three.
Yeah, it's crazy.
It's weird, but impact is big in basketball. Like, what are you doing to impact the game?
Mm.
So, but I would say value is, or most valuable would be the player with the biggest impact on this team, like on a daily basis.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm gonna clarify a little bit. So when we said greatest and we talked about impact, we talked about impact on the game overall,
Mm-hmm.
like the game of basketball, the story of basketball. What was your impact? How big is your chapter in the book of basketball? That's what we talking about when we say impact and greatness. When we say impact in best, we talking about your impact on the league or your team every day. Like your the league you played, the era you played in, were you the best? Did you have the most impact on the league? That's what we talking about when we say the best. When we say impact in terms of the best.
Mm-hmm.
And then we say impact in terms of value. What is your impact on your team?
Mm-hmm.
Night in, night out. Monday against the Grizzlies, Wednesday against the Lakers, Friday against the Warriors. What was your impact on the game? And then Sunday, y'all play the Jazz and you didn't play and y'all got beat by 30.
Mm-hmm.
Like that all is what that is kind of what we are saying in impact. So impact is consider we consider something different in all three words we're
Mm-hmm.
talking about. But going back to value, so
Yeah,
value, like you
I want to pause you right there because that was beautifully said. I really like that. I like that. That was good.
yeah, I appreciate it, man. Communication major, nothing too big. But but I had to throw that one in. But impact on a day-to-day basis is what we talking about when we
Yeah.
say most valuable. So like case in point, when Kevin Durant played for the Warriors, there was a big stat circulating, like that, ESPN, Sports Center, they all put out there. Games that Kevin Durant didn't play in when that team was together, the Warriors had a winning record. Matter of fact, I think they only lost like two of the games he didn't play in out of like almost 20.
Mm-hmm.
Like the games Kevin Durant didn't play in, they was fine. They won. clearly, because then his last year there, he was hurt in the playoffs, and they made the finals almost without him completely. So Kevin Durant was their best player, but he wasn't their most valuable. Then they had Steph Curry right under that. It's like, all right, games Steph Curry didn't play. No, Draymond. Games Draymond didn't play. He only missed like 10, 12 games or something. But they was like 500 out of them games. Like if it was 12, they was like 6-6 or like 7-5, something like that. So they had lost more games without Draymond in less opportunity than they did with Kevin Durant in multiple games, like way more games. So that lets you know Draymond's value. Then they had Steph Curry. The game Steph Curry missed, which was about 15, 16, something like that. The games he missed, they had only won like 3 or 4 of them.
Yep.
That lets you know the impact that Steph Curry had. Like, nobody argued Kevin Durant was their best player. Like, nobody will argue that. Kevin Durant was the best player on the Warriors at the time. But it was known knowledge. It was like completely known around the league and around basketball circles. The Warriors did not need him. They ain't need him. Therefore, he was never the most valuable player. And that's why nobody on the Warriors was ever considered for MVP in the league. Because it's like either way, y'all boy winning. It was you could kind of throw Steph in there, but how can we throw Steph in there for most valuable player if he also ain't the best player? You know what I'm saying? Because it's like, man, KD, y'all best player. We're not going to give MVP to Steph Curry. You know what I'm saying? Even though he's more valuable than KD on the winning team. Mm-hmm. So that lets you know where value comes in there. Same thing with the Grizzlies last year. The Grizzlies played like 20-something games without Ja Morant last year, and they'd only lost 2. They had played the Warriors in the final, not the playoff in the finals, but in the playoffs last year, and they played 3. They went to Game 7. They played 3 games with Ja and 3 games without Ja. No, 6. My bad. They went to 6 games. They played 3 games without Ja and 3 games with Ja. They went 1-2 with Ja. They went 1-2 without him. Feel me? So that lets you know the Grizzlies was a great team with or without Ja Morant. Ja Morant, their best player, but it lets you know his value ain't stacking up to a lot of other guys in the league because they are good without him. So therefore, he's not the most valuable player in the league. Then we got with your prime example of LeBron James. LeBron James, there 1 year in Cleveland, going to the finals. My man take his talents to South Beach. Next year, first round overall pick. First pick in the draft. Not first round, first pick. Lottery. That's impact. That's value. Something we cannot replace. Something of great worth, as you stated in the dictionary definition. So those are the things we need to look at when we talk about value. The impact they have on a day-to-day basis. We got a game this day, the next day, the 3 days after that, 2 days after that. What is their impact those days? That's value when we talk about that. And so therefore, the most valuable player is the player with the biggest impact on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah, the only pushback I would have, and it kind of goes back to what I was saying earlier about like how you take a player off the team, you see how far they drop or don't drop, right? Mm-hmm. And so if like Ja is a great example of this, because if from game 1 to whatever last game they had, you take Ja off of there, you look at the Grizzlies like, it's a nice little young team. They're cool. Mm-hmm. Plus Ja, we're like, oh snap, let's they're not as serious, but they can cause some damage now. Like, hold on now. Like, so I feel like that's what y'all value is. Like, value isn't just the subtraction, it's the addition too. So like we always bring up the Hawks team when it was Jeff Teague, Kyle Korver, DeMarre Carroll, Paul Millsap, and Al Horford. That team was the best. They had the best record in the league, I think. If not the league, at the Eastern Conference. Mm-hmm. 4 of them boys went to the All-Star game. It was cute. Playoff time come, like they'll win a couple games, but nobody picked them to win to the championship. Maybe to the Eastern Conference Finals, but nobody was like, "Ooh, we're scared of the Hawks." Like, all right, whatever. get y'all regular season stuff over with because playoff time come. We're looking at LeBron and the Pacers and whoever else was popping around that time, the Bulls. So it's like that's what a lot of teams look like without their most valuable, best, greatest player, whoever that is. So Ja Morant on the Grizzlies, take him off, they're looking like this Hawk team. A little more talent, but they're looking like the Hawks team. Plus him, they can cause some damage. Ja Morant, you take him off again. Once again, they're looking like that Hawks team where it's like that's a nice young team, nice young pieces, but we're not really that scared of them. Like if we took Ja Morant off, who we looking at to be anything. We're looking at Triple J to step up, but it's like, it's cool. Nobody really puts that fear in your heart. Ja was like, oh snap, that boy MVP this year. Like let's Grizzlies are up there. Like they're probably a top 14 because of him. So like you can't. I don't. That's part of the definition for me of like value is you take that player off the team. How far do they fall? That's part of it. That's why I can't name the other half of it because that situation specifically right there. Same thing for Jordan. We all know Jordan is the guy. Like you're looking foolish if you say Jordan's not the guy for the Bulls. Just because you took him off and they still made the playoff doesn't mean that Jordan isn't a great guy. Like you talking foolish now. You've revoked every license you had to talk sports, not just basketball, but sports. If that's your conclusion that Jordan's not that great because they still make the playoffs without him. Like let's have some common sense now. Come on now, let's be for real. So that's why you can't use that fully. That's part of it, but that's not the full part of what most valuable is for me. And I can't completely name what that other part is because I think that's kind of touch and go in a situation base. So I think that's another reason why MVP is the hardest award to name because it's like, how do you fully define a player's value? You know, because LeBron's value can be different from Steph's value, can be different from KD's value, can be different from Giannis' value. If I call you to do more things for my team, that doesn't make you less valuable than the guy on my team. Mm-hmm. Because if all James Harden has to do is score, but he doesn't score, our team looks terrible. But Giannis has to do a little bit of everything for the team, and he doesn't do that. He looks bad. You know what I mean? So it's like Giannis his value is 5 things compared to Harden's 1, but Harden's 1 thing can be debated is just as valuable as Giannis's 5. So it's like who's more valuable because 5 plus 1 is just 2 different things, or 5 doesn't equal 1. But for the Rockets, yes, it does. For the Bucks, yes, it does. So that's why this is the hardest one for me to really define and everything because it's like it's so wishy-washy almost. So that's why this one's kind of the hardest one for me to really like stamp on what it is, man. But I don't know. We have to do a part 2 or something on this, man, because I really don't know.
Yeah, we could probably debate all day about or go back and forth all day about things that could be considered valuable and like who's valuable and who is not, who is more valuable than who or whatever. Yeah. I think that could be a long talk. But so I want to ask you something else.
Wait, hold on. Time out. Hold on real quick. I just got a quick question for you. All right, okay, look. So where did you go? Like, what are you going after right now in your life? Right? Are you looking to make the team? Okay, you didn't make the team, but you're looking to figure out how to make the team coming up. Or maybe you made the team, but you're on the bench, you're not playing like you want to. Or maybe you're playing a little bit like you want to, but you're not a starter, or you're not finishing the games like you want to. Or maybe you're the player, but you're just not quite where you want to be as far as recognizing your county or maybe your conference or your state, whatever you're trying to be recognized at. Whatever your goal is, I want you to forget about that. Like put it on the board or something, write it down in your phone and just put it somewhere and tuck it away. I want you to take that goal, throw it over there, and now I want you to write a new one, right? I want you to write PROGRESS. Progress. I want you to make progress your goal. Okay? So take that big goal that you have now and take it, put it in your back pocket, and just figure out how to make progress and work towards that goal. Because sometimes we get so caught up on the goal of the end goal where we want to be that we don't keep working forward and working towards that goal like we should be. So every day I want you to wake up and figure out how to just make progress. How can I be better today than I was yesterday? It's going to do tomorrow. The same exact thing. Figure out how can I be better today than I was yesterday. It doesn't matter how good you are or what you did yesterday. It's irrelevant. It doesn't matter. Your goal today is to make progress, be better than you was yesterday. And so just if you need a reminder about that, all I want you to do is to have a reminder. I want you to go ahead and get one of these hoodies. Or you get you a t-shirt. I got a couple options for you. So get you a hoodie or a t-shirt just to remind yourself, just to keep it as a memento, to be like, man, today's goal is to make progress. My only goal is to make progress. Progress is the only goal. So if that fits you and you feel like you need to make progress to be your goal, go ahead and hit the link in the description below and invest into yourself. Invest into that reminder. Treat it like an alarm clock to remind you that you need to make progress. Make sure that you're focused and being intentional about the work that you have today. So progress is the only goal. Hit the description below to invest into yourself. It's not about me. Investing into yourself to remind yourself that progress is my goal for today. So that's enough for me, man. I hope I didn't interrupt you. Get back to the episode.